Hi, it's Friday, November 22nd, 2024, and not a special edition of the Zogby Report, real and unscripted, but a special day because today is Lebanese Independence Day. Jeremy and I are just coming from flag raising at Utica's City Hall, and we have very briefly a very special guest. This is Theo Zogby, the next generation, and he's got, wave that one, the Lebanese flag, and wave this one, the American flag. Thank you, big guy. Theo actually spoke at the ceremony at City Hall. And so, all right, there's a lot going on, and we're going to be brief today, but there are two things. Number one, we've talked about this before. It's become a mantra how the polls were wrong. That's just how every election ends. So let's begin with the fact that the polls were wrong. Polls were not wrong at all. In fact, to be honest with you, ours was maybe just a little bit off. But when you get to the absolute final results, which have finally been tabulated thus far this week, what you have is Donald Trump at 49.8 and Kamala Harris at 48.3. Mm-hmm. So it's a 1.5 percentage point difference, and most polls got it one way or the other.
Within the margin of error.
Well within the margin of error. And for that matter, we did too.
Yeah.
We had the wrong order, but we had Kamala Harris actually in a two-way race at 48.3. That's to the 0.1%. And we got Trump off by about 2.5%.
Yeah, and I also want to say that we also had Harris winning independents.
Yes.
We had Trump making explosive inroads into the youth vote, particularly young men, the Hispanic vote, and young African Americans, and even African Americans in general. And so, as you alluded to, a new Trump coalition, much different from 2016. And the last thing I'll say is, as you talk about beyond the horse race, there are other important questions that we asked, and one in particular as an indicator of what would happen. Who did voters expect to win?
Yeah. We
had Trump ahead by 1 point in that question.
Yes.
1 percentage point.
We did. So there is a tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes. I just want to take less than a minute and give a shout out to a great lady, Ann Seltzer, who has run the Iowa poll. In fact, has been a national pollster as well for Bloomberg for many years. Used to be able to set your watch to Ann Seltzer's polling, and she got Iowa wrong this year, and she has shut down her polling operation, which, and as you alluded to in my book, Beyond the Horse Race, expectations can be too great for pollsters. What we do at a 95% confidence level, which means there's always the 5%. You never know when it's going to hit. I've had it. Everybody has had it. And I feel very badly for her. I think she's a great professional, and I hope that she comes back because she happens also to be a very nice lady. And so with that said, let's move on to the news of the day. Even though Trump did not, it looks like he has not gotten 50% of the vote, he has been elected. And I guess we've been waiting for this for a very long time, the opportunity, once you're elected, to actually lay out a plan and do something that has not been afforded to recent presidents, certainly in your lifetime. It does appear that with his very hurried, that's not a criticism, but very hurried appointments so that he can get, right down to business on Inauguration Day, that he is tossing the salad a little bit. Yeah. He's looking for people who are disruptors. I'm going to agree that I think the American people wanted disruption. But what about his cabinet selections? Has he gone too far in some instances, or is this what you think the American people really wanted?
Well, I think the mold was broken a long time ago. Barack Obama broke the mold in 2008. I mean, yes, he was still cut from the cloth of what we would consider presidential, but we entered a new era of politics with his persona, with his style, with his demeanor. Barack Obama, albeit very presidential, broke the mold of the presidency. And then we went into tumultuous times in 2008 with the Great Recession and the world on edge, edging into that new decade, really a time of tumult. And that begged for populism, which was not unique to America. Populism is here to stay. There's no question about it. And Trump seized on what was already in there. Ron Paul, the Tea Party, Bernie Sanders, Occupy Wall Street. The rage was on both ends of the spectrum, and everywhere in between, where even moderates thought we needed something new. And there was Donald Trump, love him or hate him. Well, he's made what they are calling the biggest political comeback. And my point is, let's not make the same mistake that we made before declaring war before Inauguration Day and then declaring uber war on Inauguration Day. As you always say, a president has a honeymoon, give them their chance at their mandate. And my personal strategy in life, and I'm not encouraging anybody to how to strategize, I'm just saying this is my perspective on strategy, is when you have an opponent, you can go on the offense very hard and strong, but sometimes you can retreat, okay? There's advance and there's retreat. We know what happened last time in 2016 when they advanced. Do we want to continue that? What happens when you would retreat and allow your opposition to lay out their agenda and just see? Naturally, every administration is going to make mistakes. Governing is not an easy job, especially with the agenda that Trump wants to take on, is a very difficult position. Give him a chance and there will be openings. But to go on the attack before there are even openings is just a recipe for disaster.
So I'm going to agree with you up to a point. A winner does get to win and then to build his governance structure and governance model. Losers need to regroup and figure out why they lost. And that's not just simply a crass political statement, it's a very practical statement. Democrats need to figure out who they are and who they represent. Right now, they are a polyglot of diverse dots and no connectivity to those dots. So it includes blacks who, according to Democratic consultants, care about civil rights, Latinos who care about immigration, suburban women who care about abortion, labor unions who care about jobs and jobs of the future. And oh, by the way, we're for the middle class. And the reality is there's not a glue that binds those together. Those are defined by Democrats as selfish interests that need to be catered to on an individual basis. And there is the potential then for war among those groups, rather than finding the common denominator among those groups. And I would say lead with, we support the middle class. Why? Because as we have developed and written in our work about tribes, that is who Americans are. Whether you're very rich or very poor, we all either identify as middle class or aspire to be middle class. That's how you talk to all Americans, whether they're black or Hispanic or suburban women or so on, as opposed to singling out particular issues, especially those that may divide two groups in the coalition. Back to the cabinet, though, disruptor in chief, I'm going to agree with you, but I think he's gone too far. The Matt Gaetz appointment, and of course Matt Gaetz is
out of the picture now.
He's out of the picture. Pam Bondi now is the new selection. It's not a matter of my agreeing with her or disagreeing with her. I disagree with her on everything. But she's been Attorney General of Florida for 8 years. She has governing experience, governing legal experience. She's been elected on a broader basis. That makes a good sense. Of course, her principal characteristic and criteria is that she's loyal to Donald Trump. Hegseth at the Secretary of Defense, come on, that's the largest government agency. First of all, you don't want to be starting with a controversial appointee, whether he's innocent or guilty. That's not the point. The point is, what is he known about running defense? And how does he head towards that brick wall that is the Department of Defense and the military with no governing experience whatsoever? If you're going to toss the salad, you at least have had to have be free of some awful controversy, but also at least kind of have some experience in running some sort of a show besides being a commentator and I guess a Navy SEAL or a Ranger or one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't an endorsement of what I said, but remember, some of the most famous words of Donald Trump is "you're fired." Mm-hmm. So who is appointed now? First of all, they have to pass the hurdle, can ultimately be removed if they blunder, right? And the point is that you allow somebody to blunder because they won, just as the other side gets to be allowed who they want to appoint. And the context here is that Trump is under major scrutiny from his base because 2016 he promised to drain the swamp, and he didn't, from their perspective, drain the swamp. So he can't go back to John Bolton and what they call the swamp creatures. He has to bring in new blood, and that's not an endorsement. But the other side of it is, most people, especially in the digital age, where there's so much digital record of everything we say, everything we text, everything we email, every video we have we may as well just be surrounded 24/7 by cameras, right? And we're all human, and a lot of us are very flawed people. And no matter who you look into at that level, you can always scrutinize and you can always find. Now look, Matt Gaetz, remember, innocent until proven guilty, but he removed himself and he did the right thing. With that out of the way, let's not pretend that individuals don't have baggage. We all have baggage, and for that to be brought to the front and center is I think maybe a little too much, because I don't know that we see that so even-handed when the other side wins. I don't know that we get as much scrutiny as the opposition does.
Am I part of that we?
I don't know.
Okay. So here's my rule of thumb. I don't expect, and I've said this as far as priests, Catholic priests are concerned. I'll say this as far as cabinet appointees are concerned. I don't expect them to be the best people in the world, but I also don't expect them to be the worst people in the world. What we saw with Matt Gaetz, he's gone. What we're seeing with Hegseth now is an obvious pattern, not a one night of he said, she said, but a pattern that is a disturbing pattern because a Secretary of Defense, as we learned with JFK, who incidentally was assassinated 61 years ago today, we learned that people could be blackmailed. That once you're in office, the he said, she said, especially if there's some element of truth to it, not only can be a diversion away from the important job that they're doing, but also can be a source of blackmail, which is very troubling. And I'm very bipartisan on this.
Well, I don't know, and I'm not going to bring you into this, and this is the last thing I'll say, is I see that scrutiny with Trump appointees, but I didn't see that before in the previous administration. And there's a sense, and everybody knows I'm independent. Everybody knows that I don't take sides. I will scrutinize, right? I criticize Trump. I have some major concerns with some of the policies that he's going to lay out, but I am also going to apply that across the board. And I didn't really see that. There's an assumption from the network national media, and I'm not just talking TV. I'm talking about social media and in the online platforms of these networks. There's an assumption that our guys are above all of this stuff. Our guys and ladies are they're professional. You can't touch them. You can't. No, you can look into a lot of these individuals' lives and you can find problems. And let's not forget that they do exist. And so when we fall into this division and hyperpolarization, it just skews everything. And that's my final point.
Okay. Then, the press has focused the spotlight on some of its own members who, are not leading stellar lives. I don't care about individuals' private lives. I do care about patterns, and I do care about the possibility that we move or they move away from the job that has to be done. And so, why feed fuel to the fire? You're not going to get St. Francis of Assisi.
No.
No. And in fact, truth be told, St. Francis of Assisi was not St. Francis of Assisi either. There were some problems there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We have agreed to disagree yet once again.
Yeah.
You want to know more about polling? There's my book. You're welcome to buy it. And closing word?
Well, we'll continue the conversation off camera, and we'll name some names. For example, Blinken. Well, we can talk about him after, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good week.